backwards book, Albrecht, Drue, Ghost Puncher. My name is Elliot, and I'm here to ease your transition into the day if you're transitioning into the day, or ease your transition in the evening if you're transitioning in the evening, or ease your transition into a dog or a telephone booth if indeed you're transitioning to one of those. So here we go. Starting with chapter 4. As you may or may not remember, Al has just been given the news by his dishonest attorney, R.A. Shlomo Jimenez, that he has actually run out of money, not knowing that Jimenez is taking advantage of him, stealing his money to pay off a debt to the Russian mobster Konstantinov. Chapter 4. The Cyclops had filled up while Al talked with R.A. All of the usual suspects and rejects were there, along with the three bros that Al had decided were definitely the unsavory variety. The ghost geeks were locked in some deep debates about the Big Eight top, probably something esoteric and pointlessly conjectural, but important enough to give them a reason for being together. Lilith moved like a vampire hummingbird between the little blossoms of humanity gathered around the tables, pollinating each one with her unique brand of unspoken promises no one expected her to keep. Charlene and the other bartender, whose name and face seemed to change on a weekly basis, danced a frenetic ballet behind the bar, surfing the tide breaking against the 300-year-old oak shore before them. Someone had kicked the old-school jukebox to life and had belted out something appropriately forgettable, but perfectly punctuated with the sound of pool balls clattering from the back room. Brother Malcolm looked out over his subjects, smiling. Al took it all in, as he had almost every time he'd left his shithole over the past 8 years. He breathed in the life and the sustenance of the place with every drag of his lucky, savoring it, knowing that this was as good as his life had ever been, and that it was over now. Ari didn't have to say a word for Al to know exactly what he'd been thinking. Today was the last check day, and whatever else it had cost him, at least the accident that ended his career as a fighter had given almost a decade of this beautiful tableau of human communion in return. Shit happened, shit ended. But it hadn't ended yet. It had also given him the previous check day, which meant he still had a few $100 to burn through if he didn't want to mix the new money with the old. Lilith, he shouted, thereby ensuring every head in the place turned his way. Darling, Lilith said, cooing, fluttering across the floor to fall into his arms. They posed like an unholy crossover between a Twilight movie still and a Harlequin romance cover painting, just long enough to wrangle the crowd's attention as Al spun Lilith to her feet. Whiskey, said Al, for the room. It's my very last bloody check day. If such were the case, it had better damn well be one worth remembering, and Al damn well wanted to make sure it was worth remembering, or at least entertaining when somebody told him about it later, because if he remembered any of the rest of tonight, he'd have known he screwed it right the hell up. Chapter 4. Chapter 5. Charlene groaned and started laying out shot glasses, mustering up the best woo she could and letting it join the chorus. Like the man says, when all else fails, give people free booze, and they're sure to love you. Sure enough, tonight's crowd embraced the notion. The gratis whiskey, and what already looked to be a Friday night spent knee-deep in the weeds, bloomed into something even busier. Customers were already nut to butt with each other, and more were coming in. The bartender looked over the ranks of heads at the antique clock on the far side of the room. She was unsurprised to see Al underneath, gesticulating wildly as he entertained some new friends with an animated recounting of one of his maybe true, maybe not exploits. The clock told her it was 5:30 p.m. Fuck, Charlene said. Midnight Al is going to be early tonight. Okay. Let's see. Okay, we're going to read just a little bit more. The next section is entitled Interlude. Interlude, A Pimp's Fate. Bitburg, 1976, because pacing. It was a dark and stormy time in the world. The Star Wars was not yet a thing, and as such, the world's economy was uncertain. There might have also been a thing about gasoline. Suckers and jive turkeys abounded. Unrest lingered over the hookers on every corner, and rats died of dysentery from the garbage cooking the streets. Summer in Bitburg was a grainy 8mm snuff film of sweaty desperation and polyester psychedelia. Yet, a real pimp could still wear a fur coat with a smashing hat and never drip a drop of Maxie's relaxer on his fine-ass silk collar. If he was anything, Silky Cobra Watkins was a real pimp, the kind of OG PIMP still inspiring posers and misogynists today. He ruled Jennings Heights like some kind of funky grand poobah. From the penthouse of the Palace Majestic Hotel, he could look down on every motherfucking one of his subjects and know each and every deplorable fella he saw owed their next breath to him and him alone. Make no mistake, as a black entrepreneur and businessman of note, Silky Cobra Watkins knew the difference between a man and a hero and a black man, and pusillanimous little shits who did their dailies in the magnificent aquarium were all in his eyes because he'd gotten rid of everything else. Jennings Heights in the 70s was the kind of place blaxploitation was invented to mythologize, an archetypal ghetto that curled around the base of Fallfellow Hill like an unfed dog at the foot of its master's chair. Outsiders might have looked at the place and said they'd seen better days, but the truth was, Jennings Heights had always been a fucked up place. This wasn't Harlem. This wasn't Watts. On August 11th, 1965, 365 days a year, Watts had shared a cross street with hell. A few people associated its deadly reputation with its proximity to the Cardinal's crest, but really everyone should have, because after all, like everything else in the world, everywhere else in the world, shit rolls downhill. Silky Cobra, my man, Willie Roderick said from a stoop. Willie was a skinny little dealer, shooting craps on the sidewalk with a bunch of other rats. Seeing the smooth snake himself making his rounds was never a good thing, but the pile of lettuce between his knees said Willie had been lucky this afternoon. It meant that he could afford to be proactive. Hell, Silky Cobra was in a good mood. He might even get to keep some of the winnings. He leapt up from the spot and held up high five. What it is? Silky stopped up short. A groovy locomotive pulled into its station by an expert engineer, his thick white fur coat whooshing around his calf, silver-headed pimp cane resting easily against the concrete. His lips drew tight, his eyes followed suit. He did not back up Willie's proffer of greeting, but rested both hands on the silver ball atop a stick, cocking his head back as he did. Willie did his best to withdraw his mitt without looking like a chump. The rest of the crew was watching now, the clatter of the dice and smack talk slinking off to some other gutter. The city's summer symphony filled in the empty space. Distant traffic, kids playing, the second-hand stench of melting asphalt. Willie only just noticed, precisely 10 paces behind the king of Jennings Heights, conspicuous in their attempts to look unobtrusive, the pair of funky flunkies serving as a pimp's escort. Suddenly, even with the heat, Willie felt cold. Then he remembered he'd been lucky all morning. Willie Roderick was never lucky. Silky Cobra showing up was just the part with lucky day, where his lucky day reminded him of that. What it is, Willie Roderick, Silky Cobra said. His voice was maple syrup dripping off the end of a switchblade. Willie smiled and motioned for Silky Cobra to wait, then scurried back to his spot in front of the game. Almost instantly, his palms were dampening a stack of worn bills, which he presented to Silky Cobra like a midwife would a newborn. Tribute, Silky, Willie said. He held out the money and kept smiling in anticipation of his boss's satisfaction. Today ain't Monday, Silky Cobra said. Is it, Willie Roderick? Willie's skin seemed to be trying to escape Silky Cobra's glare by burrowing into his heart. The pimp's expression hadn't changed, nor his tone, nor his meter, but Willie knew he might just well have fucked up. No, sir, Silky Cobra, no, sir. Silky Cobra's cane flashed up, arcing from the concrete to Willie's face in a glassy flash that left a crack in the air, and Willie on his knees. Some of Willie's crew might have flinched, and some of the citizens on the street may have gasped, but anyone who did either tried their best to hide it. Messed up a sentence. Languid as the name implied, Silky Cobra reached down a manicured hand and turned Willie's face to his. Today's Friday, Willie Roderick. I don't do no collecting on Fridays. Hey, Justin Thompson, what's Silky Cobra do on Fridays? A chubby kid hiding behind the rest of the crapshooters stood up, careful to convey nothing but respect. Everybody knows on Fridays. Silky Cobra gonna go see the new talent. Silky Cobra flourished his furs and shot the kid a smile. At his feet, Willie fought the nausea oozing into his guts. His face burned. Blood pulsed from his cheek, soaking into the gash in his hand. He could hear his heart beat right before the stinging in his face flared, but he couldn't hear anything else, and all he could see were the pimp's skinny snakeskin shoes. Look here, Chunky, Silky said. Look at you, Chunky, Silky said, all smiles and satisfaction. He waved his cane over the rest of the guys. You all be watching out for this motherfucker. Little half-smoked Justin Thompson knows what it is. On Friday, Silky Cobra gets herself ready for the weekend. That means seeing how my ladies is. It don't mean motherfuckers be giving them shit he didn't ask for in opportune moments. Like a cane reaper, Silky Cobra swept down the silver end of his pimp stick. Wet smack of metal against Willie's elbow echoed throughout the brick and concrete warren of the gin. Willie collapsed, whimpering, cracking his jaw against the concrete. The pimp looked over the crew, gauging reactions and measuring loyalties. Not a shirt or a pair of balls on any of them, just dirty wife beaters and false bravado. Justin Thompson back there might have something, though. Seems like he was keeping up in school, reading books and shit like that. Justin Thompson, you fall in line with Raj and Dumpster Dive. You follow them around some. Justin did as he was told, trotting off to join the Funky Flunkies 10 steps back, making sure to bow a little and avert his gaze from Silky Cobra's gold-plated grin. Willie managed to prop himself up on his good arm, using the sodden pile of cash for support. He'd been lucky all morning. Damn it, what the hell had happened? Now, Silky Cobra said. He slid the silver end of a stick under Willie's chin, ever so gently drawing the man to his feet. Willie could barely think, but he knew how to stand, to stay quiet, and not puke blood all over the man in front of him. Now, Willie Roderick, you understand what it is? Yes, Willie said, bleeding, stammering. He quickly added, I understand, Silky Cobra. Good man. Now you go get cleaned up. You look something my dog should have. Willie nodded, clutching at his sides, and sped off in whatever direction he'd been facing. Don't be bringing me no nasty-ass gungy bills come Monday, Silky Cobra said. Satisfied, he bent down and collected most of the money from the dice game, leaving just enough for the crew to fight over when he'd gone. None of them said a word. See you all later, boys, Silky Cobra said, and then sauntered down the block. It was Friday. After all, and pleasant as this morning was proving, he still had talent to inspect. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. This has been Albrecht Drue, Ghost Puncher. Another dude hand, and if you like what you hear, I don't think anyone dialed for this bad boy. But if you come across this and you like what you hear, it just doesn't look. It's not a good look. If you like what you hear, hit the like, mash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave me a comment. That's what you're supposed to say, right? All right. Have a fine Wednesday, and I'll see you in a bit.